Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Writers Chat. We're so glad you're here with us today on this Tuesday, July 14th. And I'm here. I guess I should say who I am first, shouldn't I? I'm Melissa Stroh, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Brandy Bro and Norma Poor. And today we have a very special episode for you that we're so excited. Our special guest is a returning guest, but a favorite of ours for sure. And she's got some great things to share with you today. So I will go ahead and turn this over to Norma to introduce her to you without delay.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. If excuse me, if you're watching on the recording which means you're watching us on YouTube, click the subscribe button down below and be sure to subscribe. I am so honored and privileged to introduce our guest today. She is hilarious and an encourager bar none. Today we have Linda Goldfarb with us, and she's going to talk to us about audiobooks that sell, 5 moves every author should make. And these 5 moves are: write with audio in mind, learn from vocal prompts, trust that genre matters, visualize your listener, and invest the best for your budget. Sorry, I botched that. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest. Linda Goldfarb is an award-winning author, an audiobook narrator, international speaker, podcaster, board-certified advanced-level Christian life coach. She is passionate about helping communicators connect authentically with their audience through both written and spoken word. As the host of Your Best Writing Life and Staying Real about faith and family podcast, Linda brings extensive experience in vocal communication and storytelling. She also serves as a clarity and mindset coach for the Biblical Nutritionist Academy, is a board member of AWSA, co-founder of Linked Personality Assessment, and MC for the Blue Ridge Mountains Christians Writers Conference. There we go. That was a mouthful.
There's
Linda,
a lot of mouthful there happening.
yes, we are so tickled that you are here and look forward to what you have for us with audiobooks that sell, 5 moves every Christian author should make. Take it away, Linda.
Oh, thank you so much, Norma. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Brandy, for allowing me an opportunity to be here and share what Father has done in and through me, through the audiobook industry, and where I can come alongside your patrons, come alongside those who are in the communication business, especially the Christian communication business. And as Christian communicators, writers, speakers, podcasters, all that we are, we know that audio is part of our future. It is where industry is going. It is where younger generations are being trained. They go to audio for information, for new experiences, for entertainment, and we are being trained to learn, to engage audibly. And because of that, I feel it's very important for all of us to have an awareness, a heightened awareness of how audiobooks play in that, and also podcasts, which I know I've talked on before, and I'll be back to speak on that. But today the focus is on the audiobook itself. And as a Christian communicator, there are areas that we need to focus on in order for this product to be one that beyond our little realm of Christianity, for the open door to occur for all to be able to hear. And this is what I'm going to share with you. But because of who Father has me, as especially in this stage of my life, I would like us to go ahead and pray. And I would love to pray over those who are listening to the replay, those who are on here live with us right now. And let's just go to Father. And that kind of gives me a sense of settling. And I encourage all of us to do that when we're independent and when we're by ourselves and we're going into whatever it is that we're reframing ourselves for in that next moment. So let's go to Father. Father, we do thank you for this time. We thank you for who you are. We thank you that your word is true, that your promises are for us. We thank you that we can trust in you, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. We know that Holy Spirit resides in us, and in that we trust him. We trust you for direction, for clarity. We trust you to bring to our awareness what we need to know, when we need to know it, and also what we need to do about it. And we know that your word holds complete truth, no matter our circumstance, no matter our situation, no matter our question. Your word has the answer, and we thank you for that. Be with me now, Father, and just guard my mouth, the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart, Father God, that as I bring what you have set before me to share with these amazing individuals, that it is truth and that it will lift them up in their kingdom work. We thank you. We praise you in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen and amen. All right. Well, as Norma had said, the first move, and I'm calling this a move because it's an action. We have to be intentional when we are considering audiobooks as part of our future, audiobooks in the potential of audiobooks in every aspect of writing. And though I'm speaking audio books, I think it's really important for us to consider the audio aspect of any writing that we do, any writing, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a communication to someone else, considering the audio impact is huge. So, first move, we are to write with audio in mind. What does that look like? Punctuation is key. If we punctuate correctly, then it shapes how the narration breathes. And narration should be organic. Narration should breathe. It helps to pace our sentences. And with improper punctuation, as it is being read, you will notice it quickly. And here's one of the tests that we all can relate to is when an AI reads something, dictates something for us, it's very staccato, and you can have a title without punctuation. It runs the title into the first sentence, into the second paragraph. Without punctuation, correct punctuation, the pace of the read is off. So punctuation is key. Secondly, tempo. We need to write with the rhythm of the spoken word in mind. What does that sound like? Is your writing conversational? Is your writing adventure? Is your writing, what is the setting of your particular piece? I'll talk more specific on genre in just a little bit. But the tempo of our writing, every writing has a rhythm, not just poetry. Every writing. One of the things that I've discovered is as a speaker, I call myself a speaker first, and then I became a writer. Though I wrote for many years in newspaper publications and everything else, I was like, yeah, but I'm not really a writer because, I don't have a book. But I've discovered since then, if you write, you write. If you're putting words down someplace, you're a writer. An author may be a little bit different, or a best-selling author or whatever, but if we are putting words down, we are writers, we are scribes, we are individuals that are making a difference with the pen or with the keyboard. And all of our writing has a rhythm. So we pay attention to the rhythm of our writing, the tempo of our writing. We pay attention to extended paragraphs, extended sentences. A run off or a run on sentence can be detrimental for an audiobook. If you're trying to narrate and the sentence goes so long, the narrator can't catch their breath. You need to pace it. So that's why it's important when we're looking at editing our pieces. If it's a run on sentence, make it into 3. That is more powerful. Go for the power of the piece, not just the thought of the piece. Because when it is read out loud, you will notice that you've lost your breath there. Okay? Then we look at the third portion of Write with Audio in Mind is word flow. Write your work or read your work aloud as you draft and revise. And I'll go into that in the second portion on learn from vocal prompts. But as you are reading or as your piece is being dictated or read to you, you can check very quickly. And don't do it as you're going through. Write a chapter, write whatever, and then listen to it. Don't have this be part of your rough draft. Your rough draft is what it is. You're just getting your stuff out there on the page. But as you're going through the refining time, refinement comes when you're like, where do I need something else? What is missing here? Is there emotion that's missing here? Is there something that I need to add in? Maybe I need to put a pause here. What's going to cause a pause? And when the audio, when you're hearing it, you're going to be able to highlight, oh, that's where it is. I just kept going. I should have stopped and I should have added more here. So we can do that by writing with audio in mind. Any questions concerning that? And if you have questions, I'm happy to take them as I go through. I'm going to leave time at the end for Q&A, but just on this one portion, I'd love to be able to see. Give me thumbs up. Are you understanding and getting that punctuation is key, tempo is key, word flow is key? Everyone good with that? All right. Good. All right. So then we go on to, that's fine. Yeah, we could talk about that in a little bit, Leslie, when we get to the end of it, but mark that as a question. That's very good. All right. So the second move that we need to learn from is the actual learning from vocal prompts. If you are utilizing Word, which when we write, we can be in Google Docs, we can write on paper, whatever. But when we put our piece into Word and we have our manuscript there, there is a read aloud feature in Word. So you open up your Word, you go to the review tab, nav tab that's on the top of Word, and then you click that, and then under it, you see the read aloud feature. You're going to click that, and then you're going to be able to tell the pace of the piece. And this is what you're looking for. I have 3 things for us to consider. Character specific pace. Especially when we are looking at fiction pieces, our characters must have a different pace. We can write it so that they have a rhythm of their own. If you are writing an individual that's of a different culture and you want that culture to be highlighted, you must then write them as though they're speaking that dialogue. If they have a dialect, you need to write it as though they're speaking it. We can't write a dialogue and hope that and say, this Scottish person, da 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 da, he said with a Scottish brogue, but it's not written like he said it with a Scottish brogue. It's not going to come across that way. We can't just call someone from a certain culture and not write. One of the a favorite book of mine is Same Different as Me. If you've never written the Same Different as Me, you need to read that because the main character is an African American man, and he would not necessarily be considered highly educated, but they did really good. This is a true story, and they allowed his voice to remain in it. They didn't change up his verbiage to give clarity to it. They just wrote the words the way that he would say the words. And then as you read it, you felt him, you recognized him. And that's what we need to have is we need to have a character specific pace. So even if you're narrating or you have a narrator that goes through, they're going to be able to pick up the rhythm of the different characters. And then they can change it up for you as they're going through. But that needs to be something that you're doing as well. And with that, the rhythm of dialogue is listen for natural back and forth flow. When we're having dialogue going back and forth, when we write with audio in mind, when we write for narration, if our setting is in a room and we have two people in the room, and I would say maybe maximum three people in a room, our dialogue should drop in such a way that you're not having to say he said, she said. He said, Tom said, Bill said. For narration, their verbiage should stipulate who they are. Their word choice should stipulate. Now, you can add in a posture, add in, Bill winced. Okay, that's fine. But we don't need the he said, she said. Just write it. And then we'll know with the pattern, and the narration will be brought in differently by the inflection of the narrator. They will have that character be obvious as they're going through the narration. If we're in a crowded room, if we're at a party, if we're something and there's multiple characters who could speak in or speak up at any point, yeah, let us know who they are. Is it a waiter? Is it someone else who's come to the table? Is it a new character that's entered the room? Is it even just a shift of mindset? Maybe the person's talking to themselves. We need to have that be obvious in there, and that can be done through not overly italicized, but just that thought as a trail that comes off, and we know that it's connected to either the current. Any thought should be connected to the point of view character that you're writing in. So that's what we look at there with rhythm of dialogue. And then also looking at vocal inflection and story tone. And this can only be felt, can only be experienced by your listening reader through emotion. Emotion rises and emotion falls. And there needs to be a story tone. When you're developing a character, when it's your own story, maybe it's a memoir, maybe it's not a make-believe, it's not a fictional character, it's you, but I need to know your emotions. I need to know your setting. When you are writing and you're thinking of audiobook, really character development, your character sketch, this comes into huge play. When I have someone send me their book, their manuscript for consideration, and one of the first things, if I feel that it fits my wheelhouse, one of the first things I'll ask them for is I say, I need your character sketch and give me as much as you can about your main characters. And if there's quirkiness about your ancillary characters, your secondary characters, I need to know that too. And because then that helps with the narration process. And also phonetic pronunciation. This is one of the key things here. If I have a word in front of me, it could be a city, it can be I mean, and this happens several times where I'll see a word and it's not spelled out phonetically for me, then I can say it, but I could say it differently than what the author intended it to be said. Even if my author comes back and says, oh, well, but that's an easy one. I go, yeah, it's easy, three different ways. I could say this three different ways and it would still be correct. Potato, potato, tomato, tomato. I said, because depending on where someone lives, that's what they're going to hear. My preference is, what do you hear? And as the author, you want to have that portion as you're going through. How do I want the narrator to say this? So you're doing this as you're writing in your mind, and you can put it in phonetically in your rough draft or in your secondary as you're going through and modifying. Of course, you don't keep it in there for the written manuscript, but if you are considering audiobook, go ahead. And yeah, this is a city in, I mean, I'm in Texas, y'all, and we have so many different cities and towns that are named after every city and town across the nation. And there's one that I frequented with our professional theater group, and we would go there all the time to perform. And it's up in the upper northern part of the state. And the name of the town was Miami, or hey, let me see. How do you spell Miami? It's spelled Miami, right? It's spelled Miami. Miami.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And, but when we're in the school, the first time we said we're so happy to be in Miami, everyone in the audience yelled, Miami. Miami. In my mind, I thought these children will never be able to leave this town, because that is not how you pronounce this word anywhere else in the country. Yet, was Miami important to them? Yes. If I was doing a story and I was referencing Miami, Texas, I don't want to say Miami. So we cannot take any of that vocal inflection, the story, the rhythm, all of this. We have to focus on how we want the words portrayed in the story. So we need to keep that in mind as we're going through. So keeping a phonetic chart of characters, their name, pronunciation, the cities where they're born, any of that, keep that as a separate chart. You're going to want that for narration. Okay. So number one, write with audio in mind. Number two, learn from vocal prompts. All right, I'll stop in a little bit, or stop for a moment right here. Any engagement y'all want to make with me before I move on from here?
I just like that Brandy said co-op in Boston is coop.
Yes,
Is that how you say
and
it?
Waxahachie. Yeah,
Yeah.
Waxahachie in Texas. There you go. And let me see, African culture also has Gula language. Yes, and so there's so many different uh, Worcestershire. Yes. I mean, when we look at it, so what we practice is, how am I writing that phonetically? That's what we start practicing. How do I write it the way that it's going to flow? And then when I receive that from an author, what I do is I will do a find in the manuscript, and I will replace that word with a phonetical spelling, because then I've flow with it. So this is a help. The vocal prompts are huge. Vocal prompts are huge. All right. Okay. So then number three, trust that genres matter. Genre is so important and it makes a difference. I'm going to look at four different categories. I'm going to look at nonfiction, fiction, poetry, and children's books. I'm just going to give you the aspects of these that are key. When we're looking at nonfiction, tone and pace are key. If we have a nonfiction book and it's narrated in a monotone, you will lose the listener. You have got to have a tone that moves. You've got to be able to capture them. You need to break up your paragraphs. You need to bring in story. You need to bring in multiple elements throughout a nonfiction, unless, of course, it's an instructional book. And there are people who narrate instructional books, and that's fine. You just need to know what yours is. If yours is a how-to, it still needs to have some humor. It still needs to have different elements. It's going to capture the different personalities reading your book. And I'm not even going into personalities here, but when we write, we need to keep in mind that we're writing to all four dominant personalities, the ones that I key in on because it's my background through linked is the mobilizer, who's the getter done, the socializer, who is the life of the party, the stabilizer, who is keep the peace, and the organizer is the everything in order. So they have specific things they're listening for, they're looking for, and they read with expectation, and they're listening with expectation of having themselves seen and represented in your book. So nonfiction, you include some bullet points, you include different things that keep it going, which is also story and facts and all of those. And also helping the reader to know, oh, here's an easy part, because the socializers, stabilizers love it when things are easy. Then the next one is going to be your fiction. Fiction is character recognition is key. Find a way for that character to stand out. And you, as the writer, you do that in their posturing, you do that in their eyebrows, you do that in their movement throughout the pages. You do it in their response. Are they snarky? Are they always snarky? Whatever that is, if they have that natural snark, it must be in just about everything, unless they're called on it, right? Unless another character interrupts that snarky, and then you see a different element of the character. But maintain that, keep true to that throughout your fiction piece. If it's poetry, you're looking at cadence and clarity. Cadence and clarity are key in poetry because you want to maintain the rhythm, the cadence that's going to be true to the type of poetry that you are writing. Poetry is all different. And if you have a portion, a poetic element in some of your writing, just make sure the poetic element is isolated and that it is set apart in your writing so that we know it's poetry. I've had the privilege of being the narrator of a book of poetry written by a Jamaican author. And when we think Linda is not Jamaican, you are correct. Now, I was privileged to spend time in Jamaica. I love Jamaica and the Jamaican people. And having the opportunity to narrate this particular piece was so wonderful because it gave me a deeper insight into the culture itself and into her ability to relate story to her audience. Well, what I had to ask her is I said, are you only speaking to a Jamaican audience? Is that your goal? So when you write, it's important that you know who your audience is. And if you say everyone, that's not helpful. When you can say, here is, I want my listener, my audience is this particular person, this particular season of their life, this particular place that they're in. And that will help with narration as well. And so even with this poetry piece, she wrote in the poetry several poems where in the attribution to the particular poem, she wrote, read with a particular song in mind. So it was like, this is a poem, but it's read in the cadence of a particular song. And as a narrator, I could not say the name of that particular poem, read it with a regular cadence with the stipulation of read with this in mind. So I researched the song. I went to the author and I said, may I have privilege to actually sing the first couple stanzas a cappella, and then the rest of it, because they'll get the cadence of it. And that's what I wound up doing for every one of her poems that was with the rhythm of this song. So I had to do a lot of background work and pray that my clarity was there and my cadence matched with all of that. But the end result was something that the author was like, this is beyond what I could have expected from this. But that was something that I felt it was important to the author, and I found out that it was, and it was important to me as a narrator to be able to provide for my author a product that she couldn't wait for her audience to hear and participate in. So nonfiction, tone and pace; fiction, character recognition; poetry, cadence and clarity. Now children's books. Let's talk children's books. And yes, children's books can be narrated. I love narrating children's books. And children's books, you are looking at energy and inflection. Energy and inflection are key because you must hold the toddler's attention. And even if they're older and they're not toddlers, you still have to think of toddlers. You still have to think of those that are wanting to move from here and go over here and see something and go squirrel over here. And what can you do? Well, as a veteran professional actress of 30 years performing for children internationally, nationally, I retired in 2025 from 30 years of performance. That is one of the things when I'm doing live stage performance, energy and inflection, you must maintain them. And it's so much more important when we're looking at a children's book. When you're going through a children's book, whether it's a children's picture book, which is shorter, and yet the vocal that is given during that time will bring the child back again and again and again. It takes care of their attention when they're in the back of the car and the parent is playing the audiobook while the child is looking at the book. Now what you're doing is you're doing double duty where the child is experiencing, it becomes an experience and the characters come to life. So it's just very, very important that we keep that. Okay. All right. So that's what I have for genres, and genres matter as far as narration. All right. I'm going to go to, let me see. We have some of the stuff. I don't know if anything in here is questions. I think it's more statements. Okay. So that's all good. Did y'all see any questions that's there? I think it's more declaration that's in there. Yeah. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yeah. Y'all get it. Y'all get it. So good. All right. So number 4. And this, I don't know that this is something that many of us think about, but I found that it's very important. Number 4 is visualize your listener. And the first thing is consider location, location, location. You know, when we look at property value is based on how accessible a location is, how easily found it is, how readily available it is to someone who's wanting your product. When I consider audiobooks, what I want to know is, where is my listener right now? What is my listener doing? Is my listener in transit? Are they driving? Are they walking? Are they doing chores? Are they in a meditative state? Are they, where is my listener for my particular audiobook? And here's some examples. For me personally, on average, I am reading 5 books at a time. On average. My books, and most of my books are they're like, okay, they're in hand book, right? Here's one. This is really a great one. I'm going through this right now. The Art of War for Writers. This is my second time going through this. But so I have craft books. I have health books. Here's one. It's called Quench. That's a good one. I have different books that are positioned in different locations in my home. Because when I'm in different locations in my home, I'm there for a different purpose. And so particular books fit that purpose better than, say, the one that's at my bedside when I'm going to bed at night and I'm decompressing and I just want to have that ah moment at night. I'm going to have probably a fiction book that's not high action. I'm going to have something that when I complete a chapter, I just go, and then I can go to sleep. And so when you're writing, ask yourself, where is my favorite listener? Where is my favorite reader sitting right now? Are they reclined? Are they resting on a beach? Are they sitting up on the edge of their seat? Where are they? Because if I visualize that, and for me as a narrator, that's what I do. I am posturing the entire time that I'm doing narration. Not everyone does narration the way that I do, but I'm going to go through those here as we hit number 5. But mine really is performance-based narration majority of the time. So it would be easily done for many fiction pieces performed by me. Read by me is a different, and narrated by me is a little bit different as well. And so when I'm the writer, and I have to do this with my own writing, how do I want, or where is my listening reader when they're participating with me here as an audiobook? And then write and narrate. If you decide that you want to narrate your own books, write and narrate with real life listening moment in mind. And you might say, well, what does that look like? I don't know. It lends itself to the pace of your book. It lends itself to your character interaction. And if, it's kind of like when people watch movies. If it's a movie like that, people are going to go and watch that movie with someone who gets their awe. If it's a shoot 'em up action, they're going to be sitting at the edge of their seat with their friend going, yeah, that's what it is. Boom, right there. And so that's where they're listening from. If it's a children's book or it's something that a parent is reading to their children, then that's down on the floor. It's cuddled next to on the couch. That's where, so you want them to feel natural as they're listening to it or as they're sharing it. If it's a how-to book, they're not literally going to be building the 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 birdhouse while they're listening to your book. Maybe they could. Maybe your book is, the 25 best builds you'll ever do in your life. Okay. So then you walk them through and you're doing one build at a time. That's what you're doing. They can put it in their ears, but it's kind of like a mobile YouTube. They're not looking, they're just listening. But if they're listening for a how to and it's that, it must be detailed. Here's the first thing that you're going to need to have present before you even begin. Got them? Good. Put this on pause. I'll be right back. No, put this on pause, gather what you need, and then come back and turn me on again. Those are certain things that I've actually done in a nonfiction book where it's the author is walking the listener through her story, but then she has an under God's umbrella moment. And she wanted the listener to consider. Now, with the reader, you get to that page and then you can answer things or you can jot down a thought. Well, you can't do that with audio. They don't have your book. So what I did with the audio portion of that, and I looked at it and I prayed because I will tell you, Holy Spirit gives me so much, and I'm reliable on him, y'all. If I pray that as a Christian writer, that if you have a narrator, please, please make sure they know the Lord, because the soul is not going to come through in your narration. That's why AI doesn't work for narration for Christian writers. It does not. AI, it doesn't have a soul. And that's what's key here. But anyway, I digress. I'll come back. And as I was going through and I reached that portion of the chapter, I paused and I said, all right, how can I invite my listener here? And this won't be verbatim. It's just going to be from memory. And what Father gave me during that time was, all right, so we've made it here. Now we're going to take a moment and step under God's umbrella. I hope you're ready. I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath, and then there's 3 things I'd like you to ponder. When you're ready, go ahead and hit pause, then come back, and I'll be here waiting for you. And I went through the 3 things for that person to ponder. Now it's up to them. If they paused and they pondered, when they came back, mine was, it's good to have you here. I trust that the Lord gave you what you needed during that time. All right, get ready to turn the page. We're stepping into the next adventure, however that is. But do you see how that keeps the attention of the reader? It keeps the attention of the listener and it personalizes for them. They feel seen. They know they're seen. They know that you are engaging with them, and consider how much more they're going to want your next book. Consider how that engagement just helps them to gravitate to what it is that you have to say next. And so that's kind of there, right? That's what I'm looking at. So then number 5 is invest in the best for your budget. You have to look at your budget. When you're considering audiobook, and all of your books could be audiobooks, when you're considering that, you need to start researching what does it cost to have someone narrate an audiobook. If you're doing a children's book and a children's book can be finished in less than an hour, most audiobook narrators, they charge, or the fee for an audiobook narrator is per finished hour. That means for every 1 hour of audio that your book is, then they are behind the scenes. They're having to do post-production. They're having to make sure that the cadence is right, everything is good. So depending on your book, they can be working 3 to 4 hours extra for 1 hour of audio. Most of the children's books, if it's a children's picture book, they're going to be charged a minimum of 1 to 2 hours because that's going to be character heavy, and we want every turn of the page to engage with that child. Other books, and I'll give you a formula, is if you're writing nonfiction, speculative, any of your other stuff, take your complete word count, and you find word count by opening up your manuscript in your Word document, going all the way down. Now you can go up to the top and you can look in file, and you can look in tools up at the top of Word and find word count. But most of the time your word count is down at the bottom, and you'll see that in your Word document, bottom kind of leftish side. And you take your word count, and I ask or what I use for calculation is 9,300. I divide word count by 9,300. And so 9,300 can give me pretty much an average no matter what the book is. Some books may be longer because of the cadence of the characters, because of the style, because of the all of that rhythm, right? It may take a little longer. Sometimes we're told, well, just divide it by 10,000 words. That has it at a higher pace. And I don't go with that because I don't ever want to come back to an author and go, oh, it's going to be more because your book was longer. If I don't know, so if I'm giving a quote, I'm going to quote it on, look at your word count, give me your word count, and I'm going to divide it by 9,300. We're going to look at the approximate length of your book. And then that gives me a safe place to let them know that this is my per finished hour fee. And then additional fee is if whoever they get to master their files. I have someone that I work with, and they master, which means they make sure everything is congruent as you go through. If you are narrating your own book, do not be your own editor. Just like you wouldn't be your own book editor, you cannot be your own audio editor. You cannot. You can have it tight to specs, and that's perfect. You need other ears on top of that if you want it to be the best that you can have. So looking at best for your budget, if you're saying, well, I don't even have an audiobook budget, just you can go to Google and say, what's an average cost of an audiobook? I'll give you average narration cost, and you can look at just for a average anywhere from, there are some narrators, readers who may charge you $75 per finished hour. On average, I see about $100 starting for a fair narration, and to $300 per finished hour for a good narration, and then higher than that. I mean, y'all, you can go up to, you see some of the ones that are really heavy hitters, or if you're looking, I want so and so to read my book, and they're an actor or something like that. Okay, you're looking at, thousands per hour. And then you have to also consider what is the return on your investment there. All right. So really that's enough knowledge to kind of get you thinking about what your piece is. I'm going to tell you the difference between a reader, a performer, and a narrator. And this is in Linda's humble opinion. You can have a reader, someone who reads your book, and they're basically just reading it as a story. They're walking through, they're reading the words that are on there. There's not high emphasis on inflection or any character development, any of that. They're reading the story. And the benefit, there's always benefits, no matter what audio you choose. When your reader reads your story for themselves, The voice that they hear is their own voice. That's their interpretation of your book, is their voice. So whatever their head voice is, however they read as a reader, that's what they're doing. So if you have someone that you hire to read your book, in essence, they're occupying the head voice of your reader. And they're just going through, and it can be just a very simple, let me see, I'll give you an example here. I wasn't planning. Okay. All right. So here's, all right. This is from The Art of War for Writers. The use of a voice journal will keep characters from becoming little versions of the writer. The voice journal is my favorite way to getting to know a character. The voice journal is simply a character speaking in stream of consciousness mode. You prompt the character by asking the occasional question, and then just let your fingers record the words on the page. So I'm just reading the book. Is that, you tracking with that? Okay, I'm just reading the book. It wasn't bad. I was reading the book. When you then have a different narrative in mind, it could be the narrator. So the narrator brings vocal inflection and added nuance to a reading. Okay? All right. So I'll do the same thing. And I can do this as a narrator. The use of voice journal, excuse me, the use of a voice journal will keep characters from becoming little versions of the writers. The voice journal is my favorite way of getting to know a character. The voice journal is simply a character speaking in stream of consciousness mode. You prompt the character by asking the occasional question and then just let your fingers record the words on the page. Do you hear the difference? There's added inflection. There's added depth to the experience of your listener. Then, and that may be all you need for a nonfiction read, right? Fiction read can incorporate performing. A performer brings more theatrics, character voices. They can change up. And one of my favorite, I listen to a lot of fiction. I listen to a lot of speculative. I love fantasy. And then I also, and I like that because I love the different characters that are brought in. And I could have a 30-hour book that I'm listening to with one narrator, and the narrator is male, female, young, old, dwarf, elven. I mean, all of these different characters, and that fits my headspace. I just go, yeah, I really like that. And so I've had authors that would come to me and say, okay, well, yes, this is a book and it's a memoir and it has, my husband is in here and we have all these different different people that are in there. And I go, okay, well, can you do that? Or do I need to get do I need to get a man to do that to do that part? And for me, and this is for Linda as a narrator, my ability, my what is in my wheelhouse is I change up. I become male. I become a child. I am all of those characters because that's what I can do. That is what God does with my voice. So I can be down where I'm in a voice like this. There's some times when I may have to be in a voice that's totally, totally different. Then there's some times when maybe I might have to be a little girl who's scared. So the nuances, the wheelhouse of a narrator can absolutely lend itself to the experience of the reader. But when you are bringing those elements in, you're going to pay for those elements. That's what you're doing because that individual has honed their skill and it's what they do. And if that's what you want for your narration, then you start building your budget accordingly for that. And I have a bonus for you in your handout that you're going to receive. And it's a bonus on if you're recording your own audiobook. It gives you setting up your recording space, essential equipment, software and recording techniques, preparing your voice. And even preparing your voice is so fun because hydration is key. Your voice, your vocal cords, this is your tool. And so you have to be, and whenever I drink water, which I drink water all the time, I never drink water with ice. Never. Everything I drink is room temperature because I'm maintaining my vocal cords. And so I can do it room temperature. I can do it slightly warm. I may put some lemon in there. And it's also learning to speak from your diaphragm and not from your chest. There's all those different aspects that are there. Can people record their own books? Absolutely, they can. Absolutely, they can. They just have to keep in mind what the end goal is that they have for their book and for the experience of their reader. All right. I hope that this has been beneficial to you.
It's been great. Thank you, Linda.
Yes, very, very good. Jill had a question. She said, I wondered about doing an audiobook for my middle grade series. Does an audio bring readers, or do you need a big following first?
Well, the key thing with an audiobook, and let's look at retail outlets. Your retail outlets for audiobooks, your number one retailer is Audible. Audible requires, because Audible is an extension of Amazon, Audible requires that you have a minimum of an ebook published on Amazon. So you have to have an ebook or a print book. And if the question, let me see where she is here. Let me see. Read what she said again, because there was one part of that that I didn't quite get. What was her question?
Let me get back to it.
Do you need to bring readers or do you need a big following first?
Oh, okay, okay. When you have an audiobook, you're still going to have to market your audiobook. So it's very important, and this is what's so beautiful about audio. Audio offers you so many ways to market it. With all of my authors, I go, look, you get a sample. I cut for you a sample for this that's used on Audible, used on all of the retailers. And so that's a sample. I said, but you can take a 60-second, 90-second portion of that. You own it. This is yours. Unless, of course, you have given, or the rights are owned by someone else, right? So if it's a traditional published book, then your traditional publisher may have the rights to it. If they have the rights to it, some of them may even tell you, no, we don't want to do an audiobook. And that's kind of sad, but that's between you and your publisher. If you have the rights to the audio portion, you can do anything you want with it. One of the key things that I love doing, and I did this with, I offer it to all of my authors, and it's amazing to me how many do not take me up on it. But with majority of my authors, I say to them, you know what? If you have a launch team that you're pulling together and you've got your book that's out there, now you're wanting to do the audiobook launch on it. I said, do you want to bring them together for a time where they can meet the narrator? I'd love to meet with them. I'd love to share with them the different elements of your book and how that works and the characterization and all of this. And there's been one of my authors who said, oh, yes, I want to do that. And she actually did a live gathering of people where she was hosting an event, and I was on a big screen on Zoom up in front of them and went through a lot of the stuff with the book and brought in the characters' voices and shared a lot of that. And just recently, or this past year, that audio won first place at the SALAs. And so for the audio narration, and Does that did that have to do with the promotion of it? Not necessarily, but it's the excitement, the enthusiasm. When you look at audio, how many people are commenting on it? How many reviews are you getting on it? And when you market it, make sure that you know who your audience is. That's why these 5 elements are so important. This is the key to selling. This is the key to opening the door, unlocking the opportunity for people to want not just this one, but everything else that you have. And so it's not the audiobook itself will not sell itself. You must promote it. You must look at what is unique about it and put it in front of people again and again. Do little 30-second snippets, put them on social media, invest in what you have and build that energy. People will love it.
One of the
Yeah,
questions,
Ben, no, I love Ben saying here. Yeah, Sadie. Yeah. Um,
crazy.
asked 27,000 to narrate. Yeah. And that's what you're looking at there. And so it's like, and we think, oh, well, if I invest that much, it's going to sell. I will tell you, if you haven't done the 5 elements here, if you haven't, if you haven't written your book with audio in mind, I share that with authors as well. As a narrator, I can only read what you have written. If you do not write well, if you do not punctuate, if all of these elements that are on you do not come across, it will be read. And there are some where I do a preview on it, and there's some that bring elements, and I go, I cannot do this audiobook. I don't do every audiobook. I'm very careful in what I choose. So, but yeah, uh,
Leslie had
yeah.
made a comment. She says, I have a question on fragment sentences since some are using them more. How do fragment sentences play out in audiobooks?
As far as is a fragment sentence, let me get the clarity of what you're considering a fragment sentence. Is it an ending thought, like, or it's a partial, and it's I have one that I'm finishing right now, and there's dialogue from one person, and they're being cut off in the middle of their dialogue. And so you don't have their full sentence. And so they have 2 letters of a word, dot, dot, dot. And then the cutoff has to be quick. And so I make sure that that fits in the narration so that it sounds like someone interrupted, if it's an interruption with a fragmented. Um, if it's what I what I consider like staccato, um, it's a thought, then another thought. It's an additional thought starting with and or but. All right, use your ands and your buts carefully. Not every sentence or additional thought needs an and or a but. It needs a new line. Give it a new line. Put it on a different line. Give movement in between. Give a reposturing of the character. Then it sets it apart for, okay, there's movement. There's an action. Anytime we can engage, anytime we can move the characters in our book, like physically move them, like their shoulder shifted, the shoulder dropped, then you say the other thing. Then you don't have to have an and or but in there. Does that help you, Leslie?
Very good.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay, I plan to write 2 more books in the series. Would you go ahead and do the first book in audio? That's a great question. When we have multiple books in a series, I have one author who has pre-contracted me. Yeah, who has her contract does not engage until towards the end of the year. And she has a whole series that's coming out, but she has a novella that is introducing the family that the whole series is going to be about. So she's having me do the audiobook, and that's a kickoff that's going to then introduce the family that's going to be coming. And then she's contracted me for the additional books of that series. So the listener will become familiar with the characters in the first book that's been out for a little bit. And that is kind of like a igniting for them to go into the series. Now, if you have a series started and the first book is not an ebook, and we have the next two books coming out, there's multiple rules of thumb here, and really the only rule is whatever you decide to do with it. Here's what I've seen be very effective. It's kind of like you're told when you write your first book, you don't have to have a huge expectancy of sales. It's when your second and third book come out and people buy your third book, they're going to go back and buy your first book. So it just depends on how you're looking at it. If you have a second book come out and you love that second book, and you say, this is the one I want the audio of. I want the audio to kickstart here. And then if it's well received, then do the audio in the first book. And then promote the audio in the first book, the audio in the second book, and then going into the third book. It really depends on the writing of the author. If your first book is written with audio in mind, it can be absolutely the first book that you would do. If you've not considered any of what I brought today, you may have to go back and revise. And keep this in mind. The premise of the first book is based on what's for sale, right? You have it in ebook, you have it in print. You can slightly revise a manuscript for narration. You can't make huge changes to it because then it's a different book. But you can go back through and go, oh man, I could change this. And if you want to do those edits for audio only, you can do that. Because the person is not going to have their book in front of them other than maybe a children's picture book. They're
Well,
not going to have their
I have
book
to
in front of
say,
them.
I have to say, my husband takes books and he listens to the audio while he is reading the book. And more than once, he has expressed frustration that what is in his ear is not exactly the same as what is in the book. And he does both together because it helps his comprehension to get in to stay. So there are some people that don't like that little
No,
discrepancy.
they may get frustrated, but that is the essence of audio. That's just how it is. If you're going to have the book in front of you, you need to go in knowing it's probably not, because there are going to be even words that you can read in a book, but they cannot be said out loud next to each other. They do not flow together.
So I think most readers are not going to understand those pieces, but it's good to know that on the other side of the creation side.
Yeah. And when you say you don't know that readers would understand those pieces.
Oh, that you can't say certain words together, or why there would be a little bit of discrepancy at times between the print and the audio.
And the more that I have listened to audio, you know how you can pick up a book by a best-selling author and you think there's not going to be any glitches, and there is. And in my early year, when I was in early radio, I was in radio broadcasting, and I interviewed, and I would have best-selling authors on, and for 10 years, and I would read their books before they'd come on. I read every book, and I started going through and would mark where there was something that was wrong in their book and realized that they didn't care by that point because it was already out. And this was before print on demand and a lot of that was available. And I think as a reading listener, it's going to be something that because he's noticing it, he's going to realize, oh, I guess this is part of what I have to, but it should not take away from the context.
Yep,
Okay.
this is true.
There may be a slight difference, but it should not impact the
Context is
context of the
usually the
book.
same. Yep.
Yes, it's got to have that
Yep.
because that's the element, right? We don't want to change that. So I think it's great that he is using it for comprehension. And it's beautiful. And it probably
Retention.
depends on the genre of the book that he's
Yep.
reading as well. And if it's a how-to with a step-by-step, yeah, pretty much you better keep to the
Well,
to all the steps.
yeah, I do think that pairing audio with reading, putting it in both ways is excellent for increasing retention.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Melinda, thank you so much for
Yes.
being here. This has been fantastic, encouraging, educational, all of the above as expected. And we're going to stick around for a few minutes for our after party. Feel free to stick around for a few moments. Linda, if you're free to hang out with us for just a little bit
Absolutely.
longer, we sure would appreciate it. Melissa, can you let us know what's up for next week?
Absolutely. So next week we're going to have our traditional unplugged episode. It's our time that we meet with our community to help them with their own writing projects or things they're struggling through and they need some extra encouragement or guidance there. So yeah, these are unrecorded. These are personal times for our group. So if you're a member and you're in need of help with a writing project or a certain situation, please come and join us and you can get a little help from your community. And we look forward to those who will be with us next week.
All right. If if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to join us any Tuesday morning, 11 a.m. Eastern time. And I know you're smart enough to figure out what your time zone time would be wherever you are in the United States or around the world. And we hope you'll come and join our Facebook members page, Writers Chat group page,
Yeah.
members,
Group, not page. Yeah.
Writers
We
Chat
have both,
group.
but if you want to be
Yes.
here, come in the group.
So
And then
come in
you'll
the
get
group.
the events. Yeah.
You'll get the link, you'll get the notification, and you can join us live. If you're
Yep.
watching on the recording, thank you. We appreciate you. And like I said before, be sure to click the subscribe button, please. And y'all have a great week, and we'll see you on recording in 2. But join us next week for Unplugged. Thanks. Bye-bye.